Welcome back to Hey Kentucky and our special legislative preview. I am very honored to be joined by the new governor, Andy Beshear. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So how's it been going? Oh, it's quite a whirlwind, huh?
You're inaugurated right in the beginning of December 10th. You have a legislative session that starts the second full week of January. You present a $40 billion budget by January 28th. There's a lot to do in a pretty short period of time. We talk about it as you're flying an airplane while you're building it. Because, you got to build out an administration at the same time. But it's exciting. It's exciting because we have already gotten off to such a fast start. Now, in our first week alone, we reformed the Board of Education and are now conducting a national search to find the best commissioner of education we can. We restored voting rights to 140,000 nonviolent offenders that did their time and want to be a part of our great democracy. And we protected health care by rescinding a Medicaid waiver that would have cost us $270 million and kicked 95,000 people off their coverage. So we've been busy.
And now the real work begins. The session starts. And there's going to be some tough decisions that have to be made because you've talked about how your budget will reflect your values.
Yes.
And I would imagine education is going to be at the top of that list.
First. There are going to be some tough decisions, but I think one of the most important things in this session isn't just the decisions we make, they're important, but how we make them, is the tone of what we do. You know, over the last 4 years, we've gotten away from, I think, the people that we're supposed to be. People that when we can find common ground, we move forward, but when we disagree, we can do it civilly. And with everything you see going around the country, we've got to prove in this session that we can do this thing right here in Kentucky. And I think that doesn't just pay dividends in this session, because it will. Because if we can get over yelling at each other and calling each other names, it means that just because we disagree one day, we can still get something done the next, which means we have a more productive session. But if we get that tone right, I think it builds the goodwill over time too, that the next session will be better and the next session will be better than that. And so while we're going to do a lot of important things in this session, the way we go about it and the example we set may be the most important thing we do for our future here in Kentucky. And our kids are watching, right?
Yep.
I see kids come up to that KYA and they debate their bills and they do it the way that we ought to be able to do it. Sometimes maybe we got to look to our kids for the example as opposed to the opposite.
Hey, that's what they say, everything you really need to know you learned in kindergarten.
Well, you learn a lot of rules on how to treat each other.
But even if you disagree civilly, how will we make the budget work if there is a disagreement, especially about, say, expanded gaming or casinos? Right. How will you be able to fund things like the teacher raises without getting that agreement from the GOP side? How does it all get paid for?
Oh, at the end, it all has to add up, and that's my job. And you look at a lot of different areas where you may have some additional revenue coming in one area, and we have some additional revenue coming in certain ways. I believe that sports betting right now has some significant momentum behind it. Depending on what's included in that, it could be about $18 to $40 million. And to give you a concept of what
and that's got some bipartisan support.
It does. To give you a concept of what that means, new textbooks are about $17 million. So you start thinking about those dollars that come in revenue, not just as revenue, but what they could actually fund, the difference that they can make, the new future that they can help us write. Now, I'm in this not just to make sure a budget balances for a year, but to make the long-term structural changes, investments, and decisions where we don't just improve life for this generation of families, but it gets better each of the next generations, that we can get out of being 40-something in all of these categories, but that we can invest and educate, get our people healthy, and ultimately turn the state into something that I believe we've always had the potential for. We just have to do the work.
I want to ask you about criminal justice reform as well. That could be a big piece of the economic puzzle because of how much money is being spent on putting people in jail.
It is absolutely necessary. And you can talk about criminal justice reform from a moral standpoint, and I believe we need it from a moral standpoint. You can also look at it from a fiscal standpoint in that the cost overruns every year are significant. And we're getting pretty close to whether we're going to have to decide between, are we going to continue to incarcerate people at the rate we do or educate our children? And those are the types of choices that are out there, and how stark a budget can be if corrections continues to increase. You look at our incarceration rate per capita, we're not only some of the highest in the United States, we're some of the highest in the world. We cannot continue like that. So I believe that we will see a significant discussion, especially after people see the budget, on not just the current shape of our correctional facilities. I will tell you, over the last 4 years, because the last administration did no maintenance, we lost 1,200 beds that were otherwise there. But I believe that we will see some significant talk about, are there some people that are getting significant sentences because of maybe the persistent felony law, that are getting a D-class felony for possession, and then another one, and then another one. Why? Because they're suffering from addiction and they haven't gotten the help they need, and suddenly they have a huge sentence that doesn't necessarily help them and is also crippling the state in terms of the budget.
After this session, what would success look like to you?
Well, we've got to get a budget. There are some important pieces of legislation that very much need to pass. I would like to see at least some form of gaming pass. I believe we absolutely have to do full-blown casino gaming in our future. While I hope it can be done this session, it may be that this session is where we see sports betting. And then the next session, hopefully we could get the rest. But I think success is ensuring that we've prioritized education, making sure that it's not only K through 12, but also vocational and technical training, as well as higher education, stopping this increase in tuition that we continue to see, making sure that we have a budget where our kids have a bright, solid future, and where when we get done with this session, we say not only do we believe that we made the decisions where life's going to get better, but we did it the right way. And again, I'd go back to how we treat each other, how we talk to each other in this session. I believe is going to be as important as anything else we do.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's going to be a long couple months. I think it's going to be pretty grueling the next 60 days or so to get everything hammered out.
I look forward to it.
Wish you the best.
Thank you.
All right, stay with us. More Hey Kentucky right after this.